Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tech Talk Friday. That's right, it's a new day, it's a new dawn, and look who has decided to join me here in Portugal. Hello, Martin. Thank you for joining me today.
You're in Portugal.
I am in
I'm
Portugal.
still pointing
yes.
the wrong way. Over there. It's the simplest thing, isn't it, really? But you still never get it right.
Well, today is
Yeah,
slightly different because we've got our special guest coming on in a minute, which is Johnny Beirne, the webinar wizard. We're all in green screen up today, apart from myself, who doesn't have a green screen, but you may not be able to tell that Martin has transported himself all the way from Edinburgh to Portugal for one special day indeed, because we have a special guest on. Martin, what's the journey been like for you all the way over here to sunny, stormy Portugal?
Yeah. So we're not 6 inches apart. We're actually 1,700 miles apart and a 28-hour drive apart. So, yeah, that's how far apart we are. And Johnny's over in the northwest of Ireland, so I will be magically bringing him into my studio in Edinburgh as well. So there's going to be a lot of jumping around between countries, and we're not worried about Brexit and borders and all that sort of stuff. We just
visas,
just do our own
anything like
thing,
that.
You know.
Exactly. We have Saeed in the house. So Saeed, thank you for joining us very much. And he's saying, thank goodness it is Tech Talk Friday. It is indeed. So Martin is going to transport himself back to sunny Edinburgh. Sorry, I'm in Portugal. I don't even know where I am today, and I'm just going to look at Johnny.
The storm's hit you.
The storm's hitting me. Yes. So I was just going to say that if this show disappears very quickly, it's because it's my fault. The internet will go out and the power will disappear, but hopefully not. But before that happens, we better get our guest on. So Johnny, give me a thumbs up in the room if you're ready to come on. We're just going to have a quick splash screen, and then Johnny's going to join Martin in sunny Edinburgh. Mm-hmm. See you in a moment.
Hey, here we are in Johnny. You're not meant to be down there in your logo. We need to get you somewhere else, really. I think.
I know I'm small, Martin, but I'm not that small.
I can make you a bit bigger. Let's a bit bigger. And grab the spider. There was, it was a sort of a web reference of some sort, you know.
Oh, cool.
Let's get you to the proper size.
There you go.
Okay, that's better, isn't it? So, so Johnny and I just getting ourselves sized roughly correctly in the office here, and I have magically extended my office to add a little bit of extra space behind Johnny. So if I actually come down, I'm going to show you what's going on behind you. So if I flick this button here, we can see that actually there's a bit of fake office going on behind Johnny there. So I just add in a bit of fake office, and I've done that by dropping a picture of my office into Photoshop and then use generative AI, the magic tool, to extend the office a bit. And then you can do some other clever little bits and pieces, like move myself and Johnny around in the office and ask people to follow us on socials or whatever it is that we want to do. And that is purely because we have the green screen going on. And so I've got green screen behind me and Johnny's got a green screen behind him. And if we just turn both of those off, you'd see just literally a green sheet behind the both of us. And this is us just playing about, and I've actually added in, if you look very carefully, there's a tiny bit of motion going on behind Johnny as well, just by his shoulders there, and a little bit in the blue lights there. And he's disappeared now completely. And if I go this way, I'm going to disappear behind Johnny here. My hand falls off.
Oh, so, that was nice, Martin.
A little bit of fakery, but I think genuinely this is us. We had 2 minutes before we came on live to test this out and try and line ourselves up, and this is where we got to in 2 minutes. I reckon if you gave us 10 or 15 minutes, there is no way anybody would know that we're not both in the same room. We just tweak the cameras round a little bit.
We probably would be looking at our you know.
I have to look that way, don't I, to be looking at you? Yeah. Which feels totally wrong, but you know, it's just a bit weird.
I can see you on my other monitor, which makes sense for me. So.
Yeah. So, Johnny, is a big OBS user, and I'm an Ecamm user, so I've actually brought Johnny on OBS into Ecamm, which is a bit of an odd combination. But I'm going to let Neil talk to Johnny more about OBS and Ecamm. But what I wanted to do was just flick through a couple of slides that I've got, or scenes that I've got set up here with Johnny, because Johnny's more about doing presentations, not always about messing about with green screen, but grabbing attention. And so if I go to this scene here, then what I can do is keep my same scenes going on, but I'm able to, because we're both on green screen, colour match the shadows in the background and have us at a different shape, and then perhaps bring on my slide deck here and be going through my slide deck. And this is the sort of thing that I'm guessing that Johnny's probably doing something very similar to this with some of his clients, and then maybe going up to the big version of the slide and then maybe back to the small. And I've even turned us black and white on this one, because I think I've seen it in like the Sunday Times or something. They have these black and white photos with a colour background in some of the magazine. I thought, oh, that looks quite good. I think I'll try that. So do you ever do the black and white thing, Johnny, or is that just not
No, but if I turn on the chroma key briefly, what I did for Halloween was I showed up like this.
Green screens and Halloween were made for one another, I think, actually.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's
and
definitely
my
the case.
childish behavior all combined to make a good a good Halloween.
good green
I had
screen.
spiders and all sorts of stuff, but the fact that it was live for the Halloween Zoom party was fun.
Oh, I don't have any spiders, but I do have. It's a goldfish. Now you've come to mention it. Just because people seem to like goldfish, I don't know why they like an animated goldfish on places, but they do.
Looks cool.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to let Johnny actually speak with Neil about OBS in a second. Sure. So we're just going to disappear from Edinburgh, and then magically, any moment now, Neil's going to press.
I've pressed the button and let Martin disappear and go away, and Johnny's going to join me in my studio. It's a bit taller than me. In sunny Portugal.
Whoops. Oh. I can make myself smaller.
I can just, I keep moving my chair up and down. It's like...
Well, I'm standing, so I can.
That's all right. No problem. I don't want you to have any knee problems by the time you finish here just by crouching down. So... No. Well, thank you for joining us anyway, Johnny. And I know that you're an OBS user, and Saeed has already mentioned that hashtag team OBS here in the comments. So that's fair enough. We're all friends here. It's whatever tool works for you on the systems that you're running. So how did you, just out of curiosity, how did you get involved with OBS, and where did you start all this magic of webinar stuff and using OBS for your workflow?
Sure, and thanks to you both for the opportunity to nerd out a little bit and chat about this stuff. So over a decade ago, I started creating online courses because I was a trainer before that. And as I was creating courses, I always wanted to use ways to create them as professional and as fast as possible and reduce the amount of editing. So I got into looking at OBS, vMix, Ecamm, and all of those great tools for doing the editing as you're recording, so that there's a lot less at the end. Fast forward kind of around the time of the pandemic, when I was sharing these tips about these different software tools, people were like, can you use them live? Because I'm stuck at home and I need to train, and it needs to be exciting and engaging and not the yawn fest that webinars and death by PowerPoint have become. So I started to share how you could use these tools live with Stream Decks and OBS and Ecamm and vMix and so on. And my program, which is called Presentation Transformation, was born out of that.
Great. And you mentioned that you tried a few others. What made you sort of pick OBS over the others? I know vMix for Windows can be quite expensive as well back in the day, and I don't know whether it's got any cheaper now. So was cost a factor, or was it just sort of an easy reduction in barrier to entry just to get involved with OBS? Because people seem to feel that OBS can be quite complicated, but it depends on what you're using it for, right? Yeah,
I guess the smartphone was probably complicated to people too when they got one first, and now they can't leave it down. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit daunting out of the box, as is Ecamm and vMix
Yeah.
and a lot of tools. Having said that, with the right direction and the great content that you guys share, particularly on Ecamm, it makes it very accessible and easy to use. So the reason I got into OBS was cost and laziness. And not cost for me, but cost for my clients and students. Um, but laziness from the point of view, I should say productivity. I was teaching all three and I had to keep up with all three because my course teaches how to present with these tools. So I decided to go all in on OBS because it's both Windows and Mac and it's free, which is very attractive for my students and clients. So otherwise, I'd be teaching Ecamm to Mac users and vMix to Windows users, and that just got very time consuming me for to keep up with all three. So, like you guys, when you go all in on one, you become a master of it, and then you become known for that, and it's easy for people to follow you and know, you're the guys for Ecamm and so on. So a couple of reasons really. I mean, vMix, you run out of inputs as they're called in vMix, which is like sources and scenes in OBS, and the same with Ecamm. After 4 or 5, you have to upgrade. And very quickly, it can be about €700 plus
Wow.
50 or 60 a year. So once you buy it, the yearly isn't that prohibitive. Um, but for a lot of people, it's probably a hammer to crack a walnut from the point of view that there's a lot going on. Like they say, the average person uses 4% of the power and features of Excel. It's probably the same with vMix. So if OBS or indeed Ecamm gets you by, then why would you use something that doesn't really is really beyond your requirements? So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you're right. People don't you have to use all the features. I know people who use Ecamm are just using it purely for recording. They're not even going live. There's a lot of people who's never gone live at all, but they use it as the sort of productivity workflow. And it is just whatever tool works for you. I wanted to ask you real quick about a new tool that's come on the market. It's been on the market now for a few months, I think, called Meld. I don't know whether you've heard of it. I did a video on my channel only recently about it. And Meld is basically aiming to try and convert OBS users to go to that software. It's a very OBS-like software. It's available for both Mac and PC. And what they're trying to do is incorporate a lot of the plugins that are already available out there on OBS, because as you know, with OBS, you do have to download and configure some plugins depending on the workflow that you're looking at. And these guys are basically saying, here's a free tool. It's very similar to OBS. It's got a very similar sort of look and feel. It doesn't got all the bells and whistles, but it is available for people. And it's just in beta at the moment. And I think they're doing their best to try and make it less overwhelming, for want of a better term, for people who are looking at OBS and want a free option to say, well, here you go. Here's some live motion transitions. Here's a few bits and pieces already added. And now you can basically use this software instead of using OBS. But if you haven't seen it, maybe worth having a look at in the future, because I'm sure they're going to add more things to it. But right now, it's not an OBS equivalent. It's a very, very cut down, let's say OBS Lite -1, something like that.
Sure, I'll definitely give it a spin and have a look and see how it links up with the Stream Deck, which is key, and a few other things. But yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely got.
I mean, people ask me about Cameo for PowerPoint and
Right.
and all these other ones and so on. And look at whatever I guess meets your needs. I do think that I use PowerPoint all the time, but I do think that Cameo is a little restrictive when you get into when you start using any of these tools, vMix, Ecamm, or OBS. Typically, people don't stop just with what they learn at the beginning.
Right.
Like I've been following Martin for a couple of years now, I would say, and I'm sure you'd agree, Martin, if you go back and look at the videos when you started using Ecamm, because you started to explore other things that it could do, and Ecamm started to add new features. And so I would, if you get into this, I would use one that's going to grow with you or has the potential for you to grow with it. And I think OBS, Ecamm, and vMix definitely have that, and hopefully the new ones that come out as well.
Absolutely. Well, let's not leave Martin too far out of the conversation. We're going to bring you back into our 3-up scene. So if you guys want to just flip to your wonderful normal backgrounds and come off green screen, then I will bring you both into the 3-up scene in a second.
Yeah.
And as if by magic, here we are, all back in our normal, wonderful-looking studio set. So let's just...
That's it. Johnny's gone back to Ireland. How did he do
I know,
that?
it's already back there. Look at that. Looking good. So let's talk about those sort of workflows. There's a couple of comments first. Let me just go back into those. So Saeed says, do we all have a shared curiosity for John? Absolutely. We're all friends here. Tatiana also mentions that whatever tool works for you, you just got to pick the tool and run with it. And as you said, you have to grow with these tools, because I think if you buy a tool or use a tool that's very, very limited in its capabilities, then you're going to have to spend time finding yet another tool and then learning that. And then, so yeah, you got to pick something and stick to it. Tatiana also says she gets what we mean. She uses Ecamm herself, but she can't teach the university students because not all of them are on Macs, and many is cost prohibitive, so they introduce them to a few options. And Saeed loves his bells and whistles. That's why he loves all the plugins and so on. So you mentioned PowerPoint. You use that a lot. And Cameo, I always get confused with all these because there's Cameo. Cameo is the video plugin. I know Martin's mentioned that before on PowerPoint. So what can you basically, both of you, explain maybe some of the shortcomings of using that as opposed to adding like an additional workflow, OBS, or some other form of encoder to that sort of setup?
You want to go, Martin?
I'll start off, will I? I'll start
Go
off
ahead.
then, because I've been playing about with PowerPoint this week and Cameo. I always think of Word Up, that song.
Yeah,
That's
Cameo.
Oh, yeah,
I think
yeah.
of Cameo.
Yeah, nice red cod piece. Let's not talk about that.
It's a code word. Don't look it up on Google, people. It's quite
Well,
an
we're showing our
offensive
ages.
video that
But anyway,
goes with
it's
it, I think. But yeah, Cameo on PowerPoint is the built-in live tool, so you can appear live on a PowerPoint deck, which can be quite useful because you can change the size and the shape of your camera on that deck. That is very useful, actually, to be able to do that. So from that perspective, it's good. The downsides are, certainly if you do any of the morph type transitions on PowerPoint, which is something I do on Keynote quite a lot, it tends to, if you've got live camera on, it freezes the camera and then it goes to the new position that you've morphed to, allegedly, and then it puts the camera live again. So you get this effect where you're sort of like this and then suddenly you've gone like this, because PowerPoint doesn't maintain the live camera when it does the morph, which in Ecamm and in Keynote they both do that, but it doesn't do that for that. And it doesn't really support green screen either, I suppose, in that, because you just get effectively your USB camera coming in, or you could bring in your Ecamm camera, or I guess in Johnny's case the OBS camera comes into PowerPoint as the camera. Is that how you use it, John?
I don't use it, but people have asked about it, and I definitely think it is a simple next step if you're using PowerPoint to have your camera within the slide. Just avoid using morph. Yeah. When I go full screen, I'll show you what I do with PowerPoint, but that would be it's a great place to start, as I say, if you're using PowerPoint, but restrictive for what you mentioned and a few other things as well.
Yeah, and I think
so. Why don't we go to full screen, Johnny?
Yeah, let's do that.
So we should have a look at what Johnny can do.
Yeah, great. So thank you. So, I mean, what I typically do at the beginning of my webinar is I come on from behind the curtains, which is just an overlay. And I pretend that this is as good as it gets, right? This is really kind of reminding people what not to do with the likes of Zoom with your Golden Gate Bridge and your slide cut off and you're practically transparent. And then you can just hit a button and transform into this. But so what I use it for is, I change over to being beside the slide. The green screen allows for this. And then you can continue to present and hit a button on your Stream Deck and go to full screen and come back and check in with the audience. It's a lot better than being stuck up in the corner when you're presenting on Zoom and then going through your slides and having to say, hold on till I share my screen. And then you have to unshare to come back and check in with your audience. But yeah, I'm not sure if we're sharing audio. Let me just in case. So I mean, what I like about it, I mean, changing to that and stuff like that is I like to address the elephant as well when I'm presenting. So people like the overlays you can do as well, because there's lots of footage out there with that's been filmed on a green screen, and then OBS allows you to move the green. So if you want a very excited looking gentleman to appear beside you when you're presenting, you can also go into a circle. You'd obviously change where the content is on your slide. This kind of looks like Cameo. People like when you can make money fall out of the sky if you're talking about doing better in your sales or your webinars. All that kind of good stuff. So yeah, they're kind of the things I play around with, and I show people how to use the Stream Deck and then I have a Stream Deck button that allows the Stream Deck to fall out of the ceiling, which I filmed using my green screen. So, a lot of the stuff I teach is pattern and interrupt, which is essentially avoiding the death by PowerPoint snooze fest of a presentation that we have all grown to not love so much. The other thing I like to do with OBS is use a green slide and then put the bullet point on a green slide and remove the green with OBS, which means that the bullet point comes in beside you. But essentially, if I go behind the scenes here, it's just a green slide. But this is what it looks like. And people say, do you need a green screen? But if I pull back the green screen, the bullet point will still appear in your room. So you can do this one without a green screen with OBS. So they're kind of a couple of things I like to do. So if you have a practical application of that, for example, would be, let me just skip on a couple of slides here in my deck. But if you're talking through a particular framework that's got 3 steps in it, for example, you could bring in the steps one by one. So essentially, if I go to the slide, it's a green slide, and I bring in the arrows. But if I hit this button on the Stream Deck, you can use your clicker or your mouse and walk through a 3-step framework and make them slightly see-through, so it looks like they're kind of on glass in front of you. So they're kind of a couple of the applications that I use OBS for. Some you can do with Ecamm, some you can do with vMix, but I use OBS now. Yeah.
I mean, I love the way you're using the pattern interrupts to just break up the monotony of what could be, as you said, death by PowerPoint. There's a few people that we speak to and we've heard in the past that just content is key. You speaking on screen for 25-30 minutes is good enough, and whilst it could be fine if it's a monologue, people's attention span is what it is today, and I think you've got to give people something to keep them interested, whether it's just a slight camera movement, whether you're moving from one part of the screen to another, whether you're bringing on a graphic, some aide-memoire, something to actually show you or to reinforce the message. Yes, it doesn't have to be a wordy PowerPoint slide. Everything that you've just shown there has been very sort of straightforward and just re-emphasizes some of the points that you're making instead of having 30 bullet points on the slide, which is a big no-no. I was going to ask you what then, in your experience, clients that you've worked with, what's maybe one or two of the sort of the main gotchas that they always make in terms of mistakes that you sort of help correct? I mean, what are the pitfalls of people who really don't know how to level up their presentations and the things that you teach?
Yeah, the main ones would be the typical mistakes that people continue to make with PowerPoint, a slide that has 20 bullet points or even 5 bullet points, but they're all on there. And they're talking about the first one, and the audience is reading on through the next 3 or 4 or 5 as well. So those mistakes that have been around for a while still happen. People don't use visuals enough in terms of their PowerPoint, and they don't use moving images. So for example, if I bring up a slide here with an animated GIF on it, they're just, the presentations continue to be, still very, very very, very flat. And then, they disappear onto the corner. They say, hold on till I share my screen. Can you see my slides? All that kind of stuff. And I mean, a simple animation that I use when I talk about keeping people's attention is this one. So, basically what I say is people don't pay with their money first, they pay with their attention. And if they don't pay attention, they don't pay at all. But this is just an animated GIF sitting on a slide that you don't have to hit play to play it. So the mistakes people are making are the age-old ones, and not probably through awareness, or not even maybe taking a course or whatever it might be, using what's freely available in the likes of PowerPoint and Keynote to take things up a notch. They do presume, as you rightly say, that, oh, my content does the selling, or my content, I don't have to use these bells and whistles. But the reality is that people do need a little bit of entertainment. They're looking at TikTok, they're looking at YouTube Shorts. Things are changing. There's a lot of things going on to keep them intrigued and engaged, and we need to bring that into. And there is, Zoom fatigue and screen fatigue and webinar fatigue as well. So we do need to bring a little bit extra, and people aren't embracing that enough. And those who do, that work with me, who maybe take my courses or take my coaching, they do see more people staying to the end of the webinars, which means more money, essentially.
Yeah, more engagement is more money at the end of the day, especially if you're trying to pitch and get something across to people. You don't want people, just coming off the call halfway through. Just a very quick funny story real quick. My wife was on a webinar the other day, and there was let's say a mixed age group in there, people of a certain age, people older than myself, and so on was in there. And it was quite a serious conversation, quite a topic about health and helping people. And when you looked at the gallery view, there were 3 people asleep on that call. Now, it could have been because it was nap time for them, because it was a certain age. But the fact is that because the topic was quite serious and quite hard to understand, I think, for some people just tune out and switch off. So I guess when it's a difficult subject, when it's a serious topic, and when it's maybe hard to understand, what potential advice would you have for people to sort of still keep people engaged, but without making a little bit, a bit too humor's okay in certain aspects, right? But I guess you've got to have something that's in line with the material that you're presenting. Like maybe you wouldn't have a goldfish popping on halfway through a seminar to do with, serious illness or something, but, or maybe you would, just to break it up. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to bring in humor, but I still think that pattern interrupt, because it's an age-old, tactic in psychology and NLP. And
yeah,
as a kid, if we fell and scratched our knee, our caregiver, our parent, our guardian would probably say, oh, look at the cute doggy, and try and interrupt the pattern of pain from scratching our knee. So it does work. So even with a serious topic, just it's recommended that something different happens every 8 seconds. So you can bring that into a serious topic without bringing in a goldfish or addressing the elephant of the room or making a stream deck fall from the sky. You can still bring pattern interrupt in and maintain an appropriate level of seriousness that relates to the topic. And always do the, with any content, try and make it as understandable as possible, and use imagery on your slides, or whatever it takes. Even, sometimes I'd bring in the iPad and I would probably draw around on a few things. Right. Again, it's just to bring people back to focus on the content. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, and ultimately, to my mind anyway, a presentation is a show, right? It's not radio with a bit of video, which is what the people who continually say it's all about the content. Well, to me, if I've got the content that's the same as the next guy, but I'm also putting a show on, people will come back and watch the show, because the key word there is watch. If they're watching as opposed to listening, they're 2 different requirements.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't think that they're the same at all. I think they're totally different.
Yeah, I tell my students and clients, deliver an experience, not a presentation. And we always talk about people remember us for how we made them feel. Not what we said to them, but how we made them feel.
Yeah.
And also, you know, for a lot of the people that use my stuff, they tend to stand and they, you know, even with the simplest of like, let me get back to a kind of a white slide here. They like standing and walking around like this a little bit. It's a very familiar environment to their audience, okay? So it almost feels like that Johnny is giving a live event with a room full of people, and they just have the privilege of not having to travel. They can watch it online. And again, it's a 9 by 9 space. I mean, the office is a little bit bigger. People say, how much space do you have? I mean, pretty much if you put out your arms, you don't, depending how long your arms are, you know, the camera I can almost touch, and I can almost touch the green screen. So you don't need a huge lot of space to make it look like, I mean, when I walk off the rug, I will disappear. So the rug is my stage. And if I walk off the rug this side and I walk away from the microphone, but even if I move here a little bit, it looks like, and here's an example of somebody using it. And then, you know, if you're using the green slide, you need to go back to the green slide. But so I love to, what I love to say to people is, let's try and deliver an offline experience in an online world.
That's really good. I like the fact that your room is very small as well. I'm in an attic room in here, and I can touch my ceiling because it's slanted down there. You guys are just convincing me to sort of start playing with green screen a bit more, because I like standing up and talking and presenting. It is a bit more natural. It does feel a lot better, I think, when you're standing up. And, you know, sometimes when you just crouch down in a chair, it's not always, doesn't lend itself, I think, to being good.
Well, I think that's a good segue to a bit of geekery here, actually, because obviously we get the opportunity to geek out a little bit.
Yeah.
And green screen, I think, has got a very bad name because it's done so badly by so many people. And the first thing that people will tell you about green screen is, oh yeah, you need tons and tons of lights for green screen. And that's just absolute nonsense. You don't need tons and tons of light for green screen. However, if you're sitting still and sitting down, you can probably just use exactly the same lights that you've got at the moment, other than maybe have one highlighting your green screen a bit. However, if you're standing up and moving around, there is a bit more of a challenge with lighting and shadows and things like that with green screen. So what is your lighting setup, Johnny?
Yeah, so I've got 4 Elgatos on me, controllable by the phone. And then I have, so if I was to start to turn them off here, you can see the big one that's making the difference. And I tried the key light shining down on the back of my head, and it really highlights how bald I am, which I don't really mind because I am. So what I've done is, if I go behind the scenes here, what I've done is I've put I think they're called a caravan light, and you can stand on them because it's not a tube. So that light there is basically, if I step back here closer to the microphone. So if I turn that one off, Alexa, turn off the green screen. So you can see that while you don't need tons of light, you do need even light on the green screen. And that light alone, you can see the difference that it makes when it's off. I know we like the 40 shades of green in Ireland, but one shade of green is the best way to go when it comes to a green screen. Alexa, turn on the green screen. So you can see the difference that it makes. So yeah, I mean, if I go back very quickly to the green screen scene, you can see that it's obviously a little bit hotter down the bottom because the light is on the floor. But for the most part, if you look around, there's no, you know, dramatic hotspot. It's pretty much the same color of green in all places. So if I go back to the scene that uses the green screen, and if I was to move that light to a hotspot, it's still actually, once it's on, really, more or less anywhere in the room, you can see the difference that it makes. If you have, and we're jealous of your hair, Neil, if you have a wonderful head of hair like Neil, hair and a green screen can be a little bit of a challenge, and that's where additional lighting and the better the quality of the camera, in my experience, it definitely helps.
Either I have to wear a cap Or anyway, the other alternative isn't great. We've got a ton of comments. Shave ahead. We've got a ton of comments, by the way. A lot of love in the room for the conversation today. So where do I start? Let me just go all the way back to these comments here, which is wonderful. So Tatiana, hey Tatiana, thanks for joining us. She said, to me, the biggest drawback in my courses with Cameo, etc., is that it requires a screen share in Zoom, so it doesn't work well for like team projects and things like that. That's fair enough. And Saeed mentioned that Zoom has now got a new screen share feature that lets you overlay yourself on the share. You still have that problem though with Zoom, don't you, where it's like, I just need to share my screen. And how many conference calls have you been on? We're saying, right, I'm just gonna, and they look and they click and can you see, is it working now? It is just, because it just detracts you, I think, from the whole thing. To your point, Johnny, it's just not fluid enough, and it needs to be seamless really and fluid when you're going through a show and a presentation. It just seems to be, needs to be sort of set up well without having to sort of, there is an interrupt there, but it's not the one that you want, because people are just hanging on and waiting.
Yeah, and I mean, when you do get into something like Ecamm or OBS and have a stream deck, whether it be 6 buttons, which I don't recommend, 15 buttons, which I do recommend, or 32, is that if you want to play a testimonial...
My name is Paul O'Mahony.
You know what I mean? You can play a testimonial very quick. There's such a range of things, like if you want to go behind the scenes, for a break and stuff like that. So, Zoom will try and replicate what you can do natively with Ecamm, OBS, or vMix, but they'd want to catch up pretty fast before they would come close to some of the things that really make a difference when you're presenting with Ecamm or OBS.
Yeah, definitely. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say that, I mean, the most common one people do is they'll put themselves in a little circle in the corner of their presentation. That, to me, is a complete waste of time, because it's person in pimple is what I would tend to call it, a pip. But if they're tiny and just sitting there, it's just, well, for a start, a circle's a terrible shape to put yourself into, because you're only going to get your head and none of your hands and your arms and your expressions, none of that at all. So, number one, don't ever put a circle in the corner of your presentation if you're doing the whole presentation. So we had ourselves in circles on the previous one, but we were pretty big in those circles, and there was 2 of us. That is okay. But if it's just you presenting, don't do the sort of 10-pence piece in the corner of the presentation. Make yourself bigger, one way or another, and preferably if you can do it like Johnny has, where he's got the standing up and the scene in the background, then I think that's the best of all. But if it's not that, even still, make yourself much bigger on the screen, and I don't think many of the tools let you do that. So,
and also you can record with these tools. You don't want to be booting up Zoom to make a quick video. And I use Tela quite a lot to share personal introductions. So I jump on Tela.tv, and I would, OBS is on by default pretty much for me, and I hit record, and it's like Loom, only better for video outreach. And I go, hey Neil, Johnny here, great to catch up with you the other day, yada yada yada. You have an instant link, a call to action button underneath, and I can pop it over to you with an animated GIF in the email, all created by Tela. So having to boot up Zoom and PowerPoint and Cameo and a few different things for stuff like that isn't ideal either. So the fact that Ecamm and OBS and indeed vMix would record as well. Like I have a button on my Stream Deck that I just reach down and hit record. It starts to pulsate, knowing I'm recording, which I can see kind of in my peripheral vision. And then I can reach down again and hit the same button. And OBS doesn't say, are you sure you want to stop recording? And you have to get the mouse and hit yes, it just stops recording. So in my workflow for a video outreach, introducing myself to people who refer me to have been referred to me, then I reach out very quickly with Tela using OBS and the Stream Deck.
That's a great tip. I hadn't heard of Tela. I've used Loom before, so too many things that sound the same. I have used Loom before, but not Tela, so I'll definitely have to take a look at that.
Yeah, Tela.tv is really good, and not expensive. And Yeah, I mean, Loom is great for screen capture, and you can do it with Tele as well. But when you're recording with Tele, it's recording the camera and the slides as two different layers. So
Right.
you can have great fun with the edit afterwards. But for video outreach, like people say to me, you know, Johnny, I want to connect you with Martin. And then with what I do, it's so visual. I make a video introduction and I personalize it, and it's worth the effort, you know, because it's, as I say, like you guys, a very visual thing.
Yeah.
So OBS is great for that as well.
Some more comments, just real quick, and then I'll let Martin crack on. Okay. Hello, Chris. Thank you for joining us. Chris says, proper lighting, not tons of lighting. And by the way, my Alexa devices are going crazy. I was going to say, if people are listening to this on speakers, like, you know, because thank goodness I've got my headphones in and stuff like that. I don't know what this means, but sweat. Is that a sweat or a sweet? Head of lettuce.
Sweet, I would say.
I hope it's sweet. I don't know what a sweat of lettuce is. It doesn't sound very good. And Saeed says that he uses AI background removal. Works perfect for me. In what context are you using that, Saeed? Is that sort of post-production? Because obviously Ecamm and OBS have built-in background removal for green screen and things and chroma keying, but I'm not sure what he meant there. But anyway, go ahead, Martin. Are you going to ask something?
Yeah, while we're on the subject of backgrounds, I've noticed in your background there, Johnny, that you've got some shadows going on around your name and giving the impression that there's light coming in from a window and stuff like that. I'm going to assume that you've done that entirely intentionally for the reason of making your background look real rather than lots of these very, very bad fake backgrounds. I think that the addition of just something simple like light and shade makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, so I got that from the guys at getwalldrop.com. They were doing a lot of ads on Facebook, and they do nice stuff. I mean, you can get a graphic designer, you can get stuff done on Fiverr or Upwork or whatever. But I just like the style of the guys from Get Wall Drop. I'm not affiliated to them. They don't even have an affiliate program yet. I'm sure they will because people ask me about my background all the time. But yeah, they do a nice job, and the lighting is to make it. Like, I'm not trying to pretend that it is my background. Having said that, I do want it to be, in this example, I do want it to look relatively realistic. So, and they've done a nice job putting the logo up there as well. So
looks good.
Yeah, so I can become my logo then if I pause briefly.
Ah, right, cool.
Hence the black T-shirt all the time, and I don't have to. Think about what I have to put on every day. It's just black T-shirt and jeans, like Zuckerberg in his grey T-shirt, or Steve Jobs in the turtleneck. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important
And
to have contrast,
that's another
right?
tip.
Yeah. Go ahead, Martin.
It's another tip for green screen, because ultimately green screen's looking for ones and zeros. That's what it's looking for. So by having a lighter background and you in a black T-shirt, then the camera will pick you out nicely because it's looking for ones and zeros.
Yeah.
So, simplest of things.
People ask me what happens when you wear green with a green screen, and I said you can really become the webinar wizard. Woo! I got T-shirts. I got T-shirts made that had the green logo, and I had them ordered, and they arrived. And as the order was in transit, I was like, "Hold on a second, my logo is going to disappear when I'm using my green screen." So I had to put a green square on the graphic and stand relatively still. But if I moved off to this scene, the logo would go white, and then it became a talking point. Your logo's changing color in your T-shirt, and I'm like, yeah, it's an example of why you shouldn't wear green when using a green screen. And then people are like, what if I have green eyes? Well, then you need to get a blue green screen, which is called a blue screen, and which the whole people ask too, like, why is it green? Because it's the furthest color from the human complexion. And I always joke that if you're the color of your green screen, worrying about your camera settings is the last thing you should be thinking about. You should be going to your doctor if you're the color of your green screen. So,
Tatiana was asking the name of the tool. Is it Tele.com? I just had a quick look, or is it Tele.tv?
Tele.tv.
Tele.tv. Okay, I just want to double check with you? Because it did actually redirect me to teller.com, but let me have a look.
Yeah, teller.tv. I can pop my link in the chat if that makes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But
And I'll just copy it.
Yeah, it's I think personal video outreach, depending on the value of the potential client, particularly if you're using these tools, like OBS or Ecamm, I think is hugely underused, and people think it's not worth the effort. But depending, as I say, on the value of the client, and even when people say, "I got your video, I don't think it's for me right now, but I really appreciate the fact that you went to the effort of making a personalized video," because people are spammed with automated outreach and all that kind of stuff. And I think if you have the potential to, like, the last proposal I did was worth about 10K, and anything you can do to increase the chances of that happening with these kind of tools, and they'll remember you too, even if they don't go ahead with the deal. They'll go, if I ever need something that person does, I'm probably going to give them a shout first.
Yeah, you've got to keep them top of mind, right? Especially when it's such an industry where there's a lot of people doing similar things. And if there's a way that you can differentiate and make it more personal when you're doing some outreach, and I think that's really important, particularly when what they see with what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think Tele, because it's a browser-based recorded that renders very fast, that you can trim the edges very quick, have a call to action button. I think if you are making yourself known to potential new clients, either Loom or particularly Tele, in my case, I love Loom as well, then I think it's, because we are talking about making an impression with video at the end of the day.
Right.
I think, because I used to record with Zoom or record with OBS, edit with Camtasia, upload to YouTube, make it unlisted. There's got to be a better way, and Tele is the best way.
That seems like a lot of work. A lot of work. So
you're just not going to do it. You're just not going to do it. You're just not going to do it.
So Saeed uses his AI removal tool live. So he doesn't use chroma key or anything like that. He's got an AI removal tool. So I guess this is a plugin. Oh no, he's basically saying it's only for PCs with an NVIDIA graphics card. So the NVIDIA broadcast. NVIDIA's really stepping up with their sort of workflows and their graphics cards, because they've got the AI, not AI removal for the eye, but it's the one that keeps your sort of eye focus. Descript is something similar, where if you're looking down and trying to read something, it's going to make your eyes look like you're looking in the camera. Very creepy. Yeah. I tried it with Descript.
It's too much.
Yeah, it's
a bit too much. Yeah,
because you
don't. Yeah, exactly. And you wouldn't. I mean, if you were talking to somebody and they didn't break eye contact, you'd be freaking them out.
Yeah,
it's one of these tools where it seemed like a good idea at the time, until you think about it a little bit more. Not I'm not knocking it. I mean, I like what it's able to do, but when it doesn't break eye contact at all, it's a little bit kind of.
Yeah. The practical application, I think, sort of outweighs the sort of actually doing it for real.
I think so.
It always goes a bit Hannibal Lecter, doesn't it, really? I think if you do that.
Yeah. I mean, I use the teleprompter, so when I'm meeting clients, you guys are in the teleprompter.
Yeah.
And that helps me keep eye contact and remind me that the default position is down the lens. That's where you make eye contact. And but sometimes I do have to look down at the Stream Deck. I mean, my go-to button would be, go to slides. So then I look down to recalibrate. Let's say I'm bringing on the elephant in the room. So I put one finger on the elephant. So when I come back to camera, I can bring on the elephant in the room without breaking eye contact. So with a bit of practice, you can do these things. But if you were never to take your eye, as I say, in a day-to-day conversation, if you were never to break eye contact, it is a bit freaky.
Yeah, it does look very unnatural. And Saeed says the eye contact thing is especially creepy when you wear glasses. Yeah, it was a bit freaky when I was playing with it. As I mentioned, it actually changed my eye color. So I had one blue eye, one brown eye. That's fine. I mean, if you're David Bowie or somebody like that, but I'm not. So let's not use that. I was going to ask you, it's an interesting segue, if you don't mind. Could you maybe just tell us a little bit about the gear that you have in your studio? What is your sort of go-to gear?
Yeah.
And second question, how important is it to have a studio that's set up that you can just walk into turn on a couple of buttons
Yeah.
and start recording.
Yeah, so the Stream Deck, as I love to drop from the ceiling as part of my pattern interrupt, the Stream Deck is my go-to piece of hardware together with OBS. That's for doing the presentations. Lighting is key, and the microphone I'm always enhancing. I do realize it's probably a little bit more echoey than I normally would be because I had to move some acoustic pads recently and I got to put them back up, which apologies I didn't get it done for today. So yeah, I have a shotgun mic overhead because I don't like the microphone in view. And so that is the shotgun microphone. The green screen, got a couple of those. If I switch back just to give you an idea with the green screen. So if I go to the green screen scene, I've got a fabric one. I've got a pull down one. And in the house, I've got a pull up one as well. I went for the fabric because it's you get a lot more space for walking around. After that, then, if I go back to this scene, second monitor is really useful. I've got 3 plus the teleprompter. The teleprompter is really useful for eye contact and for making courses. So you can use it as a teleprompter for reading your script, or you can use it for keeping an eye on your audience as well. You know, I've got a sit-stand desk, so if I press number 1, it'll go the whole way down to the sitting position where I do my day-to-day work, or sometimes I work standing up. A recent addition to the standing desk is a treadmill, so I actually walk and talk at the same time. It's not advisable to be doing this and working a mouse and a keyboard.
Depends what kind of video you're doing, but yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Well, there you go. So I set it to about 2 kilometers an hour, and you'd just be walking comfortably and still able to use your mouse and keyboard. I've got a kitchen timer to take breaks every 30 minutes or less to get up and move around if I'm not in the standing position. That's kind of it, really, in terms of the workflow. I also use the Stream Deck for productivity. So, for example, if I go behind the scenes here, if I'm formatting a document, I've got normal text center, heading 1, 2, and 3. If I'm, going to Tela or the videos or Asana or my calendar or email, so I've got some of the buttons on the Stream Deck pre-programmed for shortcuts to stuff I do on a regular basis as part of the workflow. So open up a document, open up Tela, open up SpeakFlow on the teleprompter, make a video, send it off. And that lends itself to the second part of workflow. If you have to put stuff together, like I used to joke that if you had to put the kettle together every time you wanted a cup of tea, cue the tea or coffee, then you wouldn't just bother, right? So the easier it is, like even having Alexa, in case I set another one off, even having a smart speaker to turn on and turn off lights, and I am a bit of a nerd anyway to have these things, but they are practical applications of relatively inexpensive technology to bring a lot of efficiency into your workflow. And if it's efficient, you're more likely to do it. So that's kind of my take on all of that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I used to have before moving to Portugal, I was in a different place, and I had to, and it was a smaller house where there wasn't a dedicated space for doing videos and things like that. And it was just the worst thing of setting up your light. Now I've got to set up my camera. Now I've got to put my microphone in. By the time you've done all that, all your creative energy is gone. It's like, now I have to record a video, and you just don't want to do it. So I think it's really important for people who are doing this full time to have a space where you can just come in, switch on a few things, use A to do all the work for you, to turn the lights on, as you said, and away you go. Tatiana had a question for you, Johnny. She asks, are you happy with your shotgun mic? And what is it? Is it a Rode NT something, or is it another manufacturer?
It's about 12 years old. It's an AT. It's an AT so that's Audio-Technica
Yeah.
687R or something like that. I need to get a new one. And it's going through an Elgato Wave XLR. I got the Rodecaster off a friend and put it through it. It made no difference. So the reason for the echo is primarily these pads I have on the wall. They need to go back up onto the ceiling. And that's the shotgun. And it relates back to workflow. You can't move around as much. Not that I would be. And if I push my camera back when I move to the Elgato prompter, because the setup I have is heavy, you will get the waist shot in and still be able to be at the shotgun. So what I noticed with the clip-on was friction in the process, right? It's like, oh, I got to wire myself up. So you kind of put off making the videos, and that's why I like the shotgun. And it's very much, if I just go, actually, the other way. So, yeah. So it's, you can see as it comes closer. So it's pretty much just out of frame. Yeah. So ideally, I mean, it's a lot velvetier if I'm closer to it.
Sure.
But it's just out of frame, and I think the sound is it could be better. I mean, you guys have got those nice warm tones. I need to get those back by reducing echo and then possibly turning it up a little bit. But I love the fact that it's not in view, and I don't have to wire myself up every time I want to make a video.
The videos I make, I have a shotgun microphone here as well, just out of frame. I'm just touching it, and Martin's dangling his. Is that a practical effect?
That's what they call it. What is that?
That's like a 3-key Stream Deck. That's like
that's a Stream Deck. I'm just following your mounting solution for the Stream Deck or suggestion. So.
Okay.
It's the smallest Stream Deck I've seen.
What microphone is it, Neil?
So I use I've got a shotgun microphone here just out of frame that I record all my YouTube videos on, and this is just a Rode NT-G4 Plus. It's a USB and XLR combined microphone, which is okay.
And are you running it through anything to enhance it? Are you running it through anything?
The Rodecaster. But what I found recently is that the Wavelink software that's compatible with the Wave XLR, they've just updated it with version 2, which has this amazing AI voice isolation. And Martin can testify to this. Downstairs in another room, I was working in a room where we've got tiled floors, tiled ceilings, and so on. And it's horrible, horrifically echoey. I turn on this thing, and you don't get really hardly any artifacting, and I've turned it up to like 80% because the room is so terrible. But I did a video on my channel about it, and it's really good if you use it subtly. If you click on the little effects button at the bottom, the green, I'll just go full screen. So the little green effect button, yeah, click on that. You need to update it because there's a new version out, version 2, and it would be right there front and center. And I think it's called Voice Clarify or Voice, I can't remember the name of it. There you go. It's called something there. There you go. Voice
I'm
Focus.
surprised they didn't. I'm surprised they didn't tell me.
Voice Focus. It's amazing, and that would probably get rid of 90% of any reflections without really spending too much more money on the whole acoustic thing. But try it and experiment and just have a record because it's very, very useful.
It does work very, very well.
Yeah, I mean, and I put mine through just the Wave XLR as well. Too much gear. And so on. And speaking of gear and chat, go on, Martin. It's nearly top of the hour already.
It's nearly top of the hour, and I want to give Johnny the opportunity to tell us what he's up to next.
Yes, absolutely.
And do a bit of blatant publicity about both his book and a forthcoming webinar that you've come up. Coming up very soon.
Yeah. So if you pop over to the website johnnybeirne.com, you'll get what I call the Pattern Interrupt Playbook, and it goes through different examples of pattern interrupt you can do, from simple ones like using your voice, pregnant pause, things we do in professional speaking, right up to addressing the elephant in the room and everything in between. So they're just examples of that. When you get the book, you'll get an email as well about my next live masterclass, which is also called the it's called the Presentation Transformation Playbook. That's on April 2nd. It's on a Wednesday. It's 12 Eastern or 5 UK time in Ireland. And we just walked through the importance of grabbing and keeping attention, and then walked through in a bit more detail how you do some of the examples and why they're important that we got a chance to cover today. It's a free masterclass. There is, of course, as is customary in all webinars, the opportunity to join us in my online course called Presentation Transformation that walks you through the gear, the software, how to use OBS, how to use a Stream Deck, and how to use Pattern Interrupt. But the masterclass is free if you want to learn a bit more. And thanks for the opportunity to mention that.
Fantastic. I've got some guest socials for you as well. So that's where you can find Johnny online, and it should post a link to your website as well in the chat. And I'll put it in the description as well. But that's fantastic.
Appreciate that, guys.
So much. No problem. Well, we're at the top of the hour, and Johnny's only got a few more minutes before he has to shoot off to his soiree later. So, Johnny, we just wanted to say a big thank you to you for joining us today. We'd love to have you back and geek out more. We could have another hour show just talking about gear and other workflows. So I'm always up for that. I just love seeing how other people work and so on. And thank you so much for joining us. If you just stay in the green room for a second, I'll go to the splash screen. I'll bring Martin back on and we'll just talk about what we've got coming up in the next couple of weeks. Johnny, really appreciate
absolutely.
your time. Speak to you in a minute. So Martin, if you get your green screen working, and I'll pop you back into the main show here. There you are. There we are. As if by magic, as if it works flawlessly, seamlessly.
Flawlessly, seamlessly. We need to practice that a little bit more.
Exactly. So just a word of warning for everybody next week. The clocks are changing in the US to make everything so complicated for the next 3 weeks for the rest of Europe. So we're now going to be 4 hours closer to the US come Sunday night. So our next show is going to be at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the vertical show, which is now going to be, 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. Eastern, isn't it? Yeah, I've got to get my math working out there. So yeah, something like that. So we're going to be changing for a couple of weeks, I think, right?
Well, I've heard that Donald Trump has now dictated that we all are going to be using American time.
Okay, American Standard Time, AST. Yeah. Okay, well, that's good to know. So we'll
call it Trump Standard Time, obviously.
TST. It almost sounds like TNT. Well, before we get cut off from YouTube, who we got coming up next, Martin, as our guest on Thursday the 13th?
Thursday the 13th. Is that Mitzi on Thursday the 13th?
No, that's
so many guests coming.
That's
out.
Eden is coming up on the 13th. Sorry to put you on the spot there, but because this show is a well-oiled, rehearsed machine, you can tell how well it's doing. And Eden is there, and here she is, and she wanted to say hello, as if by magic. She turns up. So yeah, we're confused about the time as well, Eden. I'll send you another link so you know exactly what time to join us. Hopefully, you can still join us at maybe 1 hour later. If you can't, we'll change the show to fit around you, because that's what we do. So no problem. So that's what's happening coming up soon. And then we have Mitzi.
I popped on Eden.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, I popped on Eden's show yesterday, actually. So caught Eden live on LinkedIn yesterday. So that was good.
Fantastic. And that's for Camo, right? Because she does all kinds of workflows for Camo, which not to be confused with Cameo and so on. But anyway, before we get confused, we will have a chat to Johnny in the green room. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today on this Friday show. I like the Friday shows at this time. It's pretty good, right?
Yeah, I feel I should go and get some dinner directly afterwards now, because I'm just totally confused about what time it is.
I have no idea what time it is. Anyway, it's goodbye from me from Portugal, and
goodbye from Edinburgh. Cheerio.
Take care. See you soon. Bye.